I think we're live. Hi, everyone. We're happy to be back live on our social media with Uzbek Diaspora community in 2022. Filled with ambitions and determination, let's start this year with a positive mindset, big goals, and high targets in our studies and careers. This is one of our UD interviews where we talk to successful Uzbek professionals working abroad about their career journeys, their life experiences, very interesting stuff. So stay tuned for the next hour with us. And we start our conversation with our today's guest who comes from the world of finance and banking. Anvar Hodjaev brings 16 years of corporate and investment banking experience, spending the last 12 years with MUFG, one of the largest international banks in the world with headquarters in Tokyo, Japan. He's one of the first Uzbek-American managing directors on Wall Street. Anvar currently leads the commercial banking healthcare coverage team, where he's responsible for overseeing banking relationships with over 70 clients. With such an impressive background, Anvar will welcome you on our virtual stage and hope you have a great time with us today. And I encourage viewers to drop their questions of their interest, and we'll be answering them as we go. So let's start with fun blitz questions just to warm up.
Thanks
So
for
you
having me.
prefer yeah. So do you prefer texting or talking?
Talking
Talking.
always.
Okay. Okay. Favorite city besides the one you live in, besides LA?
Okay, my new favorite city, and that became a recent one, is Milan, Italy.
Milan, Italy. Oh
Really
wow.
fell in love with it. Yes.
Okay. That sounds good. We'll talk about it. Uh, would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
After animals for sure.
Oh, really? That's funny. Okay. How long does it take you to get ready?
I'm pretty efficient. Um,
Mhm.
if I have to leave the house at 7, I can get up as early as 6:45 and leave because I probably got ready the night before.
Oh, wow. That's a good answer. From scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you?
Probably 6, 5, not a 10.
Considering considering LA traffic, so yeah. Yeah. Fill in the blank. Warren Buffett is
Very successful man.
very successful.
Not an idol for me, but very successful.
Oh, okay. Okay. At what age do you want to retire?
Oh, I wish I could retire now. If it wasn't for American healthcare system and need to have a healthcare insurance, I would retire now. But
Okay.
maybe in 10 years, realistically.
Okay. 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 Why can't we tickle ourselves? It's a funny
Oh,
one.
I don't know. Never tried.
Okay. What does money mean to you?
um, Good question, and we can actually spend the entire interview talking about it. But
Yeah.
like in a nutshell, money is just a means to probably enjoy what this world has to offer to you in terms of,
Hmm.
I don't think you have to live the poshy, extravagant life, but I think you also need some financial stability to do things other than work.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. How many pull-ups can you do in a row right now?
God, I don't know. I can hike for a long time, but I'm trying pulling up for a long time.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
I'm a
Okay.
walker, not a puller.
Okay. Okay. We'll talk about it. All right. Let's get to know you closer. So, can you briefly introduce yourself to the audience, just about your background, where you come from?
Sure, sure. Thank you. And thanks for having me and being very flexible with timing. So, like Hassan introduced, Anvar Hodjaev. I grew up in Uzbekistan, of course. Although I probably spent some part of my childhood in Moscow. My dad was a military man, but I don't really remember that. I grew up in Andijan. Um, and probably the more kind of interesting part of my journey around the world started in 95 when I was an exchange student.
Mhm.
For about a year, I lived in an American family right here in Los Angeles, actually. And 95. Most of you guys maybe weren't even born then. But then, the world was a very kind of far apart place. Living in the US was probably once in a lifetime opportunity. I thought I'd never go there again. So try to enjoy every moment of it. Even remember calling my mom and my dad from LA. It was very expensive. I could probably afford to call only like 3 or 4 minutes a month, and that would probably eat up 10 to 15% of my student budget. we
Oh,
used to write letters back then. So yeah, long story short, then that was like, okay, you'll be in the US for a year, never see that land again. Went back to Uzbekistan. I started at University of World Economy and Diplomacy in '96, spent about 2 years there. And that's when really interesting things started happening. I think '95, '96 is when, with mass adoption of internet, the world started becoming, smaller place. So '98, I was very fortunate to be one of the recipients of the presidential scholarship to go study in the United States. I wanted to study finance, banking, so got accepted into Emory University. Was very fortunate. This is a great school. Had great experience there, both with kind of getting to know the U.S. education system, but also kind of making good friends, both from Uzbekistan and from U.S. And as part of the deal, we had to go back to work for the government. We can talk about it later, but I think it was a great school. I was fortunate enough to have a very good boss that really took us under his mentorship. And, he was very progressively thinking for even Uzbekistan back in the days. Most of the team that he hired comprised of UMID graduates. So we had a very, I'd say, international environment or Americanized European style environment at Uzbek government entities that I worked in. And then in 2004, I went to study at University of Southern California. Initially, I was in a PhD program. I thought I was a little more academic than I actually am. In '06, right before the financial crisis, I got my master's degree, and I just chose not to pursue my PhD. And I just thought it was too academic, too maybe a little bit disconnected from real life. So, I turned from would be academician professor to overnight I took a job at CIBC World Markets doing investment banking. So, and we can talk about it later. I actually had no idea what I was doing. I was sure I was going to go into industry, start working, and about 5 job offers, and I just kind of said, okay, this sounds the best. Everything else wasn't banking. So overnight I became a banker. So I lived through the financial crisis, saw it firsthand, what a financial crisis kind of does to the both economy and the financial sector. In 2010, I made a career choice, went from the Canadian bank where I was working. Actually, by then it got bought by a U.S. bank called Timer. Went to the Japanese bank. It was very big change. Culturally, interestingly, I thought I wouldn't spend that much time there, maybe 3-4 years just to gain experience. But our bank has changed significantly, became very kind of Americanized, very much comparable to many American banks in terms of culture and work environment. So, and here I am 11 years later, still with MUFG, although in a little different part of MUFG. I'm in the Union Bank side of the house. We're a very complicated international organization. We have several entities. So MUFG is the kind of the Japanese big international parent. We own a bank in California called Union Bank. So I'm on that side of the house, but it's still part of the MUFG family. So that's my journey, career-wise. Probably the first 15 years I spent on what we call product side in investment banking, in capital markets. Last year, I decided to make a change and move to something we call coverage side, where you're directly responsible with working with clients. You have day-to-day responsibilities managing all the products for the client, as opposed to my previous job. I was focused on one product, but I had many clients. So it was a very interesting journey. I'd say very rewarding, stressful at times, but as you kind of grow in your career, you kind of get an appreciation for the hard work you put in and the results that you see.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that was a very general introduction. You pretty much touched on everything that I want to touch on later, but amazing. Okay. Most of our viewers, I shouldn't say most, but like a lot of our viewers are very young students or young professionals. So I think it would be interesting for them to know how you came to a decision of, like, let's say, choosing this specific career path or specific major at a university. So if you could touch on those things, like your decision making process, value determination, your perspectives as a young individual. How did you form that? Did you have any mentors, or you came, like, were you self-reliant most of the time, or your parents helped you? If you could touch on that.
That's a very good question. I think one thing before I even answer in details, I think a lot of what we do is influenced by chance and by situation. Even going back to kind of my commentary about how I went into banking, I had no idea what I was doing. I just, it felt right. I made a good decision, right? So, funny enough, when I was kind of growing up in high school, I didn't really think of career in banking or finance. My dad worked in a bank, but not on the financial side of the bank. But he was kind of more internal affairs person at the bank. So I kind of had some familiarity, but I was very much in computer science, and maybe maybe that was a mistake. I was actually doing very well on the computer science side, but
nice.
The environment wasn't right. I think to pursue computer science in Uzbekistan, that the infrastructure
Back in the days. Yeah.
Yeah, 95, 96. I mean, I was consistently participating and even placing pretty high scores in the Republican Olympiads for computer science, and I was all into it. But then, when I went to the States and I compared the infrastructure for computer science versus Uzbekistan, it just didn't seem like a career choice. How I ended up in finance economics, again, it was very kind of gut decision, sporadic. I came back from US in June in 96. The entrance exams are in August in Uzbekistan, but back then there were 2 or 3 universities that were exception to the system. One of them was the UWED. Their exams were in July. So I said, or June. I said, what the heck, why not apply if I don't get in? And I didn't have any preparation for it because I just came back from US. I'll reapply in August. So I looked what the majors were available, and I said, I'll do the international economy major. And I was the last person to get in. They published the scores right below the cutoff. Was the last one. So I said, all right, it's like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but sounds interesting. So I did that. I think the difference between now and then, the choices and the information that's available to people to make an informed decision is vastly different. However, you won't know until you do it. So you can read everything about banking. It may sound so exciting. Consulting or, I don't know, data science. And then you walk into your job day one and you could absolutely hate it. So I think it's a lot has to do with instincts. At the right place at the right time. But also, I would say, keep in mind, when you're young, you have a lot of option value in your life. I'm talking finance terms, right?
Yeah.
And you can still have a successful career after stumbling a couple times. So go with your gut, see if you like it, and if you're young enough, I think you can switch and just don't get stuck in something you don't like. I mean, for me, if I didn't like what I'm doing and I'm 15 years into it, I would be really miserable. So I don't really have. Look, I did have mentors, I would say, along the way, but I don't think I've ever had like a mentor that consistently stayed with me throughout life.
Uh-huh.
And to be honest, like I wouldn't recommend that because the world is changing so rapidly that my
Mhm.
experiences, my view on life might not be appropriate to somebody who's in their 20s. I can kind of give them general guidance. If they want to work in finance, I can tell them what it is. But
Mhm. Mhm.
finance 20 years from now will be very different than the finance that I kind of started working in. So
Right.
my general advice, and I'm sorry I give a very long answer, but you know, don't be afraid to try things. If you like it, do it. If you don't, the world is a very connected place, a very rapidly changing place. You can switch your career overnight.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. So thanks for being so objective and so fair. World is changing so fast, so my advice may not be applicable. Like yeah, it's interesting to hear that from men who's got a lot of experience in the financial industries world. We know there's a lot of like self-made gurus out there like who give a lot of advice, but you never know if you can apply them and become really successful. But like, thanks for keeping this objective mindset, and but still like I'm sure like general principles about life, how you go about making your decision, your criteria, is pretty much universal for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people can get a lot of value out of it. uh, I was curious about your experience living in Milan, Moscow, and LA, and the differences and similarities in culture, food, and stuff like that. Let's also
Oh,
touch on some of those things.
I didn't live in Milan long enough, but
Yeah.
my or Moscow. I think my ideal city where I'd like to live. I still want to be in a financial capital of something. I don't know, Spain, Italy, Germany. I
Yeah.
want some semblance of kind of balance. I love balance,
Mm.
so I like sort of a little bit of a chaos mixed with a little bit of order, right? Like for
Mm.
example, I've been in Frankfurt, I've been in Zurich. It was just too orderly for me. Just too much order. I want people to kind of be a little bit passionate about what they're doing, but not completely laid back. So I
Mm.
really love balance, and I also like weather balance too.
Oh, right.
Like I live in Los Angeles now. I was telling you earlier. I love the weather, hate the traffic. I walk to work because I can't stand the traffic. I live in downtown, 10-minute walk from the office. And the reason I chose that, I just don't want to be in traffic. I just feel like it's a waste of my life. So, no, I think that's why I kind of thought, like, I've recently been in Milan. I was like, oh my God, this is a city. If only I spoke Italian, probably would try to get a job in one of the Italian banks. But yeah, unfortunately, like I told you, I rather speak to animals than learn every language. So
Now I know.
Italian isn't happening anytime soon for me.
Right. Yeah. 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 Yeah, well, if you think about it, a lot of LA people are kind of a little spoiled in a sense that they come to New York for like a week or a couple, and then they always complain about the it's so cold or it's too hot. But like, come on, we live here. We live here for like 4 months of cold in the winter time. So,
Yeah.
but
But
yeah,
there's grass is always greener on the other side.
yeah, that's true.
That's always
That's
true.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the what do you call your explanation of chaos and order. So you like a little bit of chaotic city and like more orderly city, gives you a sense of like adventure. That's
Yeah.
good.
Good balance.
Okay. How often do you come to New York?
Every month.
Every month, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
every month I spend 2 3 weeks. Well, every other month I spend 2 3 weeks. I mean, I'm still part connected to New York. the financial industry is rapidly changing.
Mm.
Sometimes, there may be a need for me to go back, but we don't know yet.
Yeah.
A lot of what I do is also tied to New York. It's still
Mhm.
financial capital of United States. So we can.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. Okay. Let's also talk about universities that you went to one by one, like the things you like, the things that you didn't like. Uh, let's start with the University of World Economy and Diplomacy in Uzbekistan. So you earned your Bachelor's of International Economics, and that's how your journey in the world of economics started, I guess, right? Mm-hmm.
Correct. The only clarification, I transferred out 2 years later after the government program, but the first 2 years I spent there. Yeah, that was
Mm-hmm.
good experience. Just really enjoyed it. I think we're still living in a somewhat closed bubble. I think the email was just starting to appear, to making the world a little more connected, but still very localized experience, very
Mm-hmm.
traditional, old school,
Mm-hmm.
almost elements of Soviet education too, where that lecture would lecture, you take notes, and actually we're required to take notes. And I'm a really poor writer, so I hated writing. So I never understood the point of taking notes. But it was pretty rigorous. I have to tell you, the class, the 95, 96, 97 classes, the ones that went to study in U.S. and United Kingdom, Germany as part of the MEET program,
Mm-hmm.
most people did exceptional well. It was a very strong school.
Yeah.
Coming into Emory, which at the time was top 10 school in the United States,
Oh,
top undergraduate business school. I had no trouble from academic standpoint getting in, especially on kind of more rigorous side.
yeah.
I think I haven't been in touch with Uzbek education system, but the big downside of at least then it was very theoretical and very little application to life. I think back then this university was still kind of at the forefront of Uzbek education, and they've given us applied projects, but it was really hard to do any kind of applied projects in Uzbekistan.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'd say the biggest issue with Uzbek education back then, and I don't know
Uh-huh.
if it's still the case today, is
Mm-hmm.
lack of connection between real world and what you study. So that was the challenge, and it was a big change for me when I actually transferred to Emory. I thought a lot of my peers and
Uh-huh.
students, they may not be as fundamentally strong on the background, on the math and theory, but
Mm-hmm.
they were really good at connecting whatever they're reading in class to what they're seeing on TV in terms of
Mm-hmm.
business. And that's the part that took me much longer to learn. And I think that was a big culture shock to me.
Cool
Um,
talk. Okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So you said you were a pool writer when you were in Uzbekistan, when you were studying at the University of World Economy and Diplomacy, right? We know that in the U.S., being able to write is a very important skill
Yeah.
as a student. So,
Yeah.
how did you manage to overcome this maybe weakness of you?
Just to be clear, I'm a poor handwriter. I hate
How
handwriting.
you say handwriter?
No, that's okay. But you bring up a really good skill, important thought. So typical Uzbek mentality back then, whatever. I'm going to take finance classes, economics class, fundamental classes. I
Yeah.
had to take business communication, business writing. It was a requirement. I kept postponing it till last semester, and that was one of the biggest mistakes I made. Actually, it was interesting. One of the most valuable classes out of my 3 years at university, and the one where I actually learned something completely different from a life skill perspective, was business communication, business writing. Ability, you can be the smartest person in the world. If you cannot communicate your ideas, if you cannot put them in a way that somebody reads it very coherently,
Yeah.
all your talent will go to waste, right? So
Yeah.
being able to present to your audience in such way that it's easily understood, kept somebody's attention, was like, wow, why did I never think about that? So
Mm.
that was interesting and eye-opening experience, because remember, we always came from the kind of background there. All right, you really have to study the relevant topic if you want to be pro at it, and everything
Yeah.
else is noise.
Yeah.
Um, and apparently, this was one of the lessons I learned, that noise is actually important. Like, we tend to ignore the noise. We think in our judgmental ways that, okay, this is not helpful to my career. I want to be finance professional. Why do I need to take business communication or business writing?
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
then one of the advices that I always given to people, I talk to um, folks a lot about career and guidance, is like,
Hmm. Hmm.
how's your business writing, business communication skills? And they're like, I never focused on it. And I've encouraged people to take it. And once you kind of enter into a corporate world and the professional world, that becomes very important. It's very important, because especially a lot of things are done by email.
Yeah.
One second thing is, you could have a very complicated project, or
Mm.
an idea for a client that you could spend, you know, 3, 4 days, maybe a week, preparing, researching, but you have 30 minutes to present. How do
Yeah.
you present it so that a week's worth of work is presented very concisely in 30 minutes?
Mm.
That was a very big skill that I picked up at Emory. One thing that was interesting, and I did that just to call for the heck of it. I knew I had to go back and work for
Yeah.
Uzbek government, but nevertheless, I tried to apply for some jobs just to get a practice and skill, sort
Yeah.
of what it takes to interview. That was very helpful. So when I actually came back for graduate school, I did have the experience. Even though I already had a job set, I still, right. So that was very good. What I liked, like I said, Emory was a great experience. One thing that I learned it later,
Mm.
when I went to graduate school, and I went to University of Southern California. It was a great school. I
Mm.
always tell everybody when they say, how did you like school?" I said, "I wish I went to USC for undergrad and Emory for grad school, not the other way around." Right? The Emory was the
Mm. Mm. Mm.
um, I think one of the most important things that you could gain from college, at least here, it's not necessarily the knowledge, but also the connection, right? So,
Connection.
um,
Mm.
who do you know, especially in my field, right? And uh,
Mm.
like the network that I developed at USC was much stronger than the one at Emory, because USC just prides itself on networking,
Mm.
alumni connections. I think actually out of 5 job offers that I had out of university, 4 were referred through
Mm.
alumni work, or I gotten interviewed because the interviewer was from USC. So that was
Mm. Interesting.
that was very important thing, I think. So really researching that part, your alumni network, is very critical for us. So Emory, don't get me wrong, great academic school. It just was very different at the time. Plus, being an international student back in the day versus being an international today was very different. I think in '90s, it was still very much, going to school in the South. Still, you could see some of the separation between different, ethnic groups and whatnot, or international.
Mm. Mm.
Whereas I don't think today that's an issue. So,
Mm.
no, I'm very grateful for all the education I had. Um, is education, good school important? Probably, but it also has to do a lot with your um, personality, your drive, your ambitions. I think
Mm.
interestingly, the most successful analysts that I've hired and saw them grow their careers weren't necessarily from top schools. But they were like their best schools, best students from state schools. They were very driven, very motivated. Um, so the school choice is important, but not critical. I think but to be fair, I'm not, is going to Harvard versus smaller state school same thing? No, I think you could get the same kind of education. What you won't get is the networking, right? Because when
Right.
you're in your mid-career, you have to really develop your book of business, and you went to school with 100 other people, of which maybe 60 to 70 are very successful. It gives you a lot of start room versus going to school where, out of 100 people that you went to school with, maybe,
Mhm.
5 or 10 are very successful and far in their career. So yeah,
Okay.
I think that part of, good schools, or we call good schools, is very important.
Right. Okay. Sounds good. So personality is important. Being able to network is very important. And okay. And business writing, like being able to write and express your thoughts in a written and oral way, is also very important. And school choice is important but not critical. So you can just, maybe how to say that, overcome it with developing your own personality. Maybe you may not have enough financial, strong financial background to afford a college at, let's say, Harvard or Stanford, but still, you still have a lot of chance, a lot of opportunities out there. Like a lot of other universities can give you the same knowledge, and being able to network is important.
Yeah.
Okay, those are some of the things that I take as a takeaway. All right. Good. Good talk about your education. Let's emphasize the importance of earning certificates. I know that you have an FINRA 7, FINRA 24, 263. I don't know what they stand for, but I know that it's the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. It's an independent, non-governmental organization that writes and enforces the rules governing registered brokers and broker dealer firms in the U.S. I think in the financial industry, right? So if you could just explain that to us, it'll be
All
appreciated.
right. So there are two types of things or certificates,
Mm,
qualifications you can do. One is required
mm, mm.
to work. So all the FINRA licenses, 7, 24, 63,
Yeah,
79, there are others for insurance. You just have to take it, otherwise you can't operate. I think the most miserable I've been in my life is taking FINRA 24, the supervisor exam. So once you get the
mm,
supervisor level, you have to take the
yeah,
24, otherwise you cannot supervise people working in the securities industry. Um, but I wish I don't have to ever take it again. So that part is like, hey, you got no choice. You probably have to. And I think it's good for you to take it because you kind of know what you're doing. Then there's optional, the ones that are really furthering your career, right? The
yeah.
CFA, CPA. So I am a CFA charter holder. I worked on it during the financial crisis.
Yeah.
And to be honest, it was more around kind of furthering my careers and creating options, because during the financial crisis, it was tough to get a job. So any way you could advance or make yourself stand out was good.
Mm,
For example, CPA, if you're in accounting, you probably would want to have that. It gives you
yeah.
credibility. Now, in investment banking, do I really need CFA? Probably not. On the coverage side, some of the skills that I've learned in CFA is probably a little more relevant.
Mm,
The people that I speak to regularly, the CFOs, the treasurers of various companies, they tend to have that because it is very applicable to them.
mhm.
I think it's a good one. Some of these certificates and uh, charters, whatever we want to call them, they're good.
Mm.
Generally, it doesn't hurt,
Doesn't
but
hurt. Yeah.
remember, in anything we do in life, it's a trade-off, right?
Mm,
CFA, you're talking about 3 exams, 3 years of your life studying 6 months each, right?
yeah.
So
Mhm.
theoretically, you could use it for something else that could advance your career. So
Yeah.
it's not a magic wand that will open every door for you
Yeah.
to be successful. So again, it was a choice that I made during certain environment. In the job market, I thought it would help me. I ended up not relying on it.
Yeah.
Just going back to financial crisis, I remember our group had 12 people. By the end of the financial crisis, there were 3 people in my group, including me, right? So
Yeah.
75% of people were let go. So when you're seeing that, you're like, okay, I want to have diverse skill sets so that if there aren't jobs in what I'm doing, at least I can use the CFA as a proxy to other relevant fields to show that I'm not an idiot, right? So it actually does take a lot of work and patience, certain skills to get it. So to some people, it's a signal, if anything else, right? So when I'm going through 10 resumes and CFA might be applicable to my specific higher needs, and
Yeah.
2 people have CFA, 8 don't, I'm probably going to focus on those without even knowing them, right?
Yeah.
They can all have same last names, same education background, but the one that has CFA, maybe he didn't put in effort. But and there's a lot of certificates like this in data science and computer science and
True.
project management.
True.
It only signals that you went through the effort of getting it. You have invested your time in it. It's a good signaling thing, I would say.
Good signal thing. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
but don't get hung up on it that to be successful in finance you need CFA. No, it's absolutely untrue.
Oh, really? Okay. That was a question I was gonna ask, and I think one of our members also asked a relevant question. Beck Israelov, hello from DC area. CFA versus masters.
Good question. Depends what you want to do. If you want to do more of investment banking, I would say corporate banking. Neither. I would say you don't need
Yeah.
either of them. If you want to go into more quantitative side, probably masters in financial mathematics goes a longer way than CFA. But if you want to do asset management buy side, CFA is the way to go.
Yeah.
I think that the importance is to figure out what you want to do and what skill sets are important. I think that the finance is just not a cookie cutter, right? Because some of the emerging finance stuff, like what we call disruptive fintech, I'm a dinosaur for that. I don't have any of the skills like to be successful in that. Maybe on the managerial side, but not on sort of the actual business, right? So that's very important. I don't think I can give generic advice on either, but it really function of what area of finance you go into.
So it's very relative, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I was going to also ask about fintech since you mentioned it already. What do you think about fintech and its future? I know you mentioned you had some interest in the world of computer science, and now you chose the path of like financial industries, and now you see some merger in it. Like what do you think? Maybe you could have like done something in the past that like helped you get into fintech. I don't know. What I'm trying to say is like, what do you think about fintech and the merger between the computer science world and financial world?
There you go.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's
Okay. Well, so let's take a step back, right? Technology is going to disrupt every industry.
Yeah.
I cover healthcare now. One of my biggest coverage areas, sectors that I'm focused on, it's called healthcare IT.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Healthcare.
So the technology disrupts everything, right? The pace of innovation, the speed at which data is processed, um, you know, if you don't adapt, you're a dinosaur, right? So the
Yeah.
banks are learning from that. The
Yeah.
fintech industry, and fintech is very broad, right? You can even
Yeah.
call it, you can start from like Venmo and PayPal as being fintech to
Yeah.
fintech being kind of, you even seeing fintech startups in kind of traditional banking. um, I, I think you know 5-10 years from now, a lot of especially with like machine learning, right,
Yeah.
AI, a lot of what we call commodity banking products are
Mm.
going to um, become automated. The human factor, I mean, the human manual labor factor will gradually disappear. But one
Mm.
thing I have to understand, and this is actually one of the reasons I quit my PhD program. Yes, a lot of the prediction, kind of rational behavior can be modeled, programmed, but in every industry you have the human factor. The areas of banking that require human touch, understanding personalities, egos, career goals, aspirations that drive the financial decisions,
Yeah.
um, are not replaceable with machines, I think. So
Mhm.
that's where you're still going to have um, kind of the human factor. And
Right.
so for example, right, take the world of mergers and acquisitions, M&A, right? A lot of, yes, there is kind of quantitative approach of analyzing, modeling it. At the end of the day, sometimes it's a human factor too, being
Mhm.
able to,
Mhm.
you know, build the trust of your client to listen to you,
Mhm.
and take your advice. That's a human factor. You can give 100,000 models to a CFO and CEO, saying pros and cons of buying or acquiring a company, but sometimes an honest dialogue, understanding this person's, aspirations, personal experience,
Yeah.
go the fears even, is very important to convince that person doing one way or another. So,
Mhm.
yes,
Mhm.
it will definitely disrupt the industry. It's just not going to replace humans.
Okay. Okay, since we opened up a general broad topics, I had two questions to ask you. Since like as an economist and as a senior representative of such a large financial corporation, right? What is your forecast or prediction for the world economy in 2022? Which global trends will shape the world economy in the next maybe 5 to 10 years? Anything that you can comment.
Sure, gosh, that's a good question because look, I'm gonna make a side comment when I finish.
Okay.
Everything that you're reading, the in Bloomberg, CNBC, other sort of finance publications around inflation expectations, supply chain disruption. I
Yeah.
think all of that is very topical, right?
It's
But
very well.
it's very topical. It's very
Top.
relevant. It's on every CEO, CFO's mind. The labor market shortages, all of that. But however, it's everybody knows that, right? So everybody's predictions are plus minus within that zip code. What we don't know, and had we known that or being able to predict that, we wouldn't be here. We'd just kind of retire a long time ago, having a crystal ball. Is what unexpected shock that will shock the economy, right?
Mm,
And it's being ready for the unexpected is the interesting part. Is which sectors of economy, which parts of the world are ready for unexpected, like the COVID, right? If you go
yeah.
back years ago, I was actually in Japan, right when COVID started, and I started seeing
All
people
the way.
and getting paranoid. I'm like, what is wrong with you people? This is just gonna go away very quickly. And here we are, 2 years into it. but it is the unexpected, right? Think about
Yeah.
how COVID changed the whole way of doing things. Who in 2.5 years ago ever said that the big four audit firms would allow you to indefinitely work from home? Come on, that was just never going to happen, right? So those kind of things are like what we call the unexpected, right? So to me, and this is a common misconception, is that bankers and economists know the future and can pick stocks. No, we're very horrible at that. We can make educated guesses based
Yeah.
on data, right? But
Yeah.
if everything went according to data, life would be very boring.
Okay.
You wouldn't have, and you never know when the next disruptor is going to come in too, right?
Yeah.
Like think about the car industry when Tesla started as a joke, right? It's like, come on, are you serious, right? And now Tesla is worth than all the car companies combined. So,
Mhm.
I think my continuous prediction is just expect the unexpected, watch for the disruptors, and see if you can take advantage of that and be part of it.
Mhm.
It's a little bit like a lottery.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. There's some predictable elements, but there are a lot of unpredictable elements in forecast making, like financial forecasts, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure, for sure.
Hmm. Hmm.
Otherwise, it'd be so boring. You wouldn't need people. I think
Hmm. Yeah.
look, I think the important skill of a manager, of a finance professional, of
Yeah.
an economist is being able to adapt to unexpected changes.
Yeah.
What makes a great manager, great CEO, great CFO is being able to adapt to unknown. Because if they knew everything, I mean,
Yeah.
would be pretty boring. And same thing with us, right? When
Yeah.
when COVID started, there was a big liquidity squeeze in the market.
Yeah.
Most of the capital markets were shut down, and we as bankers had to figure a way to support our clients
Mm.
with decisions like on snap, right? Because like
Yeah.
really have to make a quick decision, being able to adapt to new realities that okay, this thing is impacting the economy globally. How
Yeah.
is this client going to fare in this environment? Are we willing to lend two, three, $400 million to the
Yeah.
single client to support them at the really bad time?
Yeah.
And that's the adaptability part, and that's what makes kind of you a true professional in what you're doing, being able to adapt to unknown and big changes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So since we are like in 15 minutes time frame, plus and minus, I just wanted to encourage the viewers to ask questions when we have time, and we'll be answering as we go. The next more general question that I want to throw out there is the following. Since you had a little bit of experience of working in the government of Uzbekistan, I'm sure whatever happens socially or economically in Uzbekistan would still be relevant and interesting to you. So, what do you think of the current economic status of Uzbekistan? Do you still have friends or affiliation in the Uzbek government, or are you aware of any market transformations? We don't have to be too critical or too optimistic about it. Just general economic trends, just some objective statements from a person who works in the financial industries of the West, I would say.
Sure, it will not be a very educated answer
That's
because
fine.
I am talking as someone who just reads the headlines. Um, I probably go there once in 2, 3 years, and I'm not intimately plugged in
Right.
day-to-day reforms. I do have friends who we've
Mm.
started in same organizations in the government. Some of them are very high-ranking officials now,
Yeah.
ministers, deputy prime ministers, whatever, right? So
Yeah.
very successful people, very smart, very educated. Um, Look, I think a lot of what I'm seeing is very interesting. It's a natural sort of evolution of kind of transformation from a socialist economy to capitalist economy. I mean,
Yeah.
the the things that I kind of would wonder if I was an investor. One is like, is the country taking on too much debt?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, it seems like Uzbekistan has become much more open to international capital markets
Hmm.
and much more integrated into international markets. Probably prior to 2016, 17, there was some government debt, but there weren't many like international bonds issued by Uzbek sovereign government or by Uzbek companies, right? So
Yeah.
what happens in the international capital markets now profoundly impacts Uzbekistan.
Um,
Um, you know, the country was much more isolated, if you will, from the impacts of a financial crisis. Now, as a sovereign bond issuer, we have bonds out there, and they do trade in international markets. So it's much more integrated. So that's to me is very interesting. Other than that is kind of the again. I'm talking more about things that I keep an eye on, and I don't necessarily have answers or solutions for because I'm not expert in
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Of course,
We're not expecting answers.
it's the geopolitical environment, right? I mean, it's unfortunately what's happened in Kazakhstan,
Yeah.
right? Where it has geopolitical impacts. What's happening in Afghanistan has a big
Hmm.
geopolitical impact, and is the country kind of strong and from institutional standpoint to withstand any kind of turmoil, and hopefully would never see turmoil there. We still
Hmm.
have all of us have family relatives there.
Hmm.
We don't see that. So
Right.
that's those are all interesting things to keep an eye on.
Hmm.
I do watch. To me, it's very interesting as a banker because first of all, MUFG is very involved in some of the things that are happening there. Our bank finance a couple of the very big projects.
Oh, nice.
The UZGTL project that just launched in
Yeah.
Uzbekistan. MUFG was one of the largest lenders to that. I wasn't involved. Of course, this Uzbekistan is covered out of Europe.
Hmm. Hmm.
Uzbekistan, also, MUFG is very active in sovereign and also other bond issuances of Uzbek corporates.
Yeah.
One of the book runners or placement agents for these bonds. So it was always great to see
Hmm.
MUFG being involved in Uzbek bond issuance.
I'm
So
sure it was very.
it was really cool, right? So, but again, that's our team from London. Sometimes they do call and talk to me, but
Hmm.
I'm not part of the coverage team, unfortunately.
Any Uzbek what do you call financial professionals in your London office?
There used to be. I haven't been in touch with them in a
Hmm.
while, but I think the person that covers Uzbekistan, she's a native Kazakhstani. I think Uzbekistan MUFG was very active in Kazakhstan first, and
Yeah.
they were very involved in a lot of Kazakh bond issuance. And I think
Hmm.
she was the natural person to take over Uzbek coverage too.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. Awesome. Okay. The U.S. healthcare industry is massive, right?
Hmm.
And with healthcare spending accounting for over 17% of the U.S. GDP, and the U.S. GDP is almost 21 trillion USD in
You did your
2020.
homework. Good job.
Yeah.
You
So
really
yeah,
did your
of
homework.
course. I come from a background of economics as well. I did my bachelor's at CUNY, so
Did
I can talk some terminologies.
great. No, I was reading the same report about. I'm actually taking with me 250 pages of reading to my
Oh wow.
weekend trip, and I was kind of getting an update on the U.S. healthcare industry.
Nice, nice.
Once you spit out, I was like, oh, that's great.
Of
Anyway,
course.
I digress.
Yeah. So you are a managing director or head of commercial banking healthcare.
Correct.
So how do you see the U.S. healthcare industry and where it's headed, and your role in this industry,
Right.
and the impact you make as an organization, also and as an individual, your decisions, and and your team, your culture.
Okay, I'll try to answer a 2 hour long question in 5 minutes. So,
Yeah.
first of all, MUFG is one of the largest lenders or one of the largest foreign banks in the US,
Mm.
right? Very active in healthcare.
Yeah.
I think actually I was part of three largest mergers in pharmaceutical industry. Each one of them over, at least on the financing side, we financed over 30 billion for those deals, and
Yeah.
it's an incredible experience, right? So we have about 25 billion portfolio to the healthcare industry in the US. Very big industry for us.
Yeah.
We are very active in every step of the way of the US healthcare system, from smaller doctor offices that you go to all
Yeah.
the way to Pfizer's and J&J's. So all the names that you're seeing these days in news, Pfizer, whatnot, J&J, AstraZeneca, whatever, they're all clients of ours, right?
Okay.
So
Okay. Okay.
I'm very plugged in. U.S. healthcare system is extremely complex and complicated. Is it good, bad? I don't know. There are good things about it. There are bad things about it. I think
Yeah.
the greatest thing about U.S. healthcare system, and maybe some people, especially the young people, may disagree with me, but it drives innovation.
Mm.
The pace of innovation that U.S. healthcare industry produces is just remarkable. From things that um, were uncurable, untreatable 20 years ago, to the drugs that we have today. And
Mm.
remember, to develop a drug sometimes costs $1 billion, and there could
Mm.
be only 300,000 people uh, only suffering from that terminal disease. But we all need to come up with solution to those.
Yeah.
The big elephant in the room is still cancer.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's an area where a lot of companies are putting a lot of investments into
Mm.
studying it and learning, and still, unfortunately, we're making progress, but not as well. But the pace of innovation is incredible, right? The fact that you saw this with COVID, how quickly we had vaccines, how quickly we had treatments. And it's
Mm.
not because that, you know all the investments were made prior to that. The mRNA technology, that Moderna existed before COVID, right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that technology was being developed. It's just we never had an application. So U.S. healthcare system is very innovative, but at the same time, it's probably number one cause of personal bankruptcies in the U.S. It's very
Oh.
it's very
Okay.
expensive. It's very if you're uninsured and you go to emergency room,
Yeah.
it could cost tens of thousands of dollars, right?
Sure.
Um, so unfortunately, what U.S. system has not focused, at least until more recently, is what we call
Yeah.
preventative care. If
Yeah.
and if you go back to Soviet Union back in the days, when
Yeah.
we used to go to polyclinica, where you had to get preventative care,
Yeah.
and the life expectancy wasn't bad in socialist countries, because there may not be like great drugs to cure very advanced diseases,
Yeah.
but the preventative system was good. If you were sick, terminally sick in like socialist countries, they'd say, okay, just take your grandma home, let her die in peace, right?
Yeah.
Here, find
That's true.
drugs that can prolong life, maybe
Yeah.
for 3 months, maybe for 6 months, but they'll do that.
Mm.
So the big area of healthcare that we're focusing on right now is what's called value-based care right now, which is
Yeah.
basically trying to cap the costs of
Yeah.
healthcare.
Mhm.
So if somebody's got certain kind of sickness, trying to make sure that that sickness is treated within certain dollar limits is the big area where healthcare is going. More the preventative side. And by the way, going back to healthcare IT, artificial intelligence or machine learning, there's a lot of investments going into the healthcare system that would be able to predict based on sort of your lifestyle, your history, what diseases you may be prone to, and taking advanced care of that so it doesn't develop into something really bad. Like, for example, the kidney failure, right?
Yeah.
Once somebody has bad kidneys, they have to get dialysis every week.
Hmm.
Plus, it's very long. The process takes a lot of money and time too. So how do you make sure that somebody doesn't get it? That's where the U.S. healthcare system is heading.
Yeah.
I can talk for hours about that. It's a very exciting sector. I knew nothing about U.S. healthcare other than the bills were very high and a very complicated insurance bills until
Yeah.
7 years ago when I started covering healthcare. I learned a lot, but
Yeah.
I'm scratching the surface. I mean, I run a group that has 70 clients, billions under in our portfolio, but I'm just scratching the surface. It's fascinating sector.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Let's take 2-3 minutes just to wrap it up, since we're limited, restrained to an hour long, time frame. So yes, some of the takeaways from today's interview. So you believe that we're all influenced by chance, and availability and accessibility of information is very important. And right people, right time. Being able to time your luck is also very important, and you shouldn't get stuck with the things that you don't like. Do whatever you like. And also, what you gained at a university was networking with alumni. Alumni networking is crucial in your career success. And school choice is important, but not critical. Personality and networking are probably some of the most important elements in your success in your career, right? And anything you do in your life, you always do a trade off. So I really like this. I kind of expect this thing, because as an economist, you always come to making choices, and you're always limited, and you have to do trade off. So that was like a very economic perspective to life. And anything you do in your life, you always like have to make some sacrifices. You choose your career path, but you're just missing another opportunity. You're choosing this opportunity, you're missing another opportunity. So yeah, and certificates are important. They're like a proxy or signaling of the fact that you're educated, that you've done your homework, and that you're ready to get into the industry, right? So yeah, and no prediction is 100% accurate, just like COVID. Expect the unexpected. And Uzbek government is more open economically, and it's good and bad, because nowadays like new bonds are issued, and the economy is integrated and more exposed to the more general and global market. And we're happy that the bank you work at is helping issue bonds and helping Uzbekistan to grow. As a compatriot, we were always happy to see some progress out there, some contribution. And U.S. healthcare is complicated and complex. So we
Very,
probably
very,
will have to.
very good. Very good. Anyway,
Yeah,
if I could say one last thing,
yeah,
career and all that is
sure.
great. Don't lose sight of life. Enjoy the life to the fullest. I would say that's the biggest thing that I learned over time. Yeah, career is great. Being successful, great. Just don't get caught up into it, right?
Okay.
There's
Okay.
a lot of other things. So I was telling you right after this interview, I am going off the grid 3 days. I will not be reachable. I'm disappearing in the deserts of California and Nevada just to spend some time in nature. So that's very important. Balance in life is very important.
Okay.
Look, it was great talking to you guys. If anybody wants to connect on LinkedIn, I'm always open. Yesterday I got a couple LinkedIn messages from people that I've been communicating with. They got job offers or in final rounds of interviews where I kind of help them to sort of navigate the waters. That gives me the most pleasure. I think the reason that a lot of us that are doing this with you guys is to really help. I mean, when I came to US and I started my career, there were very few people, especially in finance from
Yeah,
Uzbekistan, right? I didn't really know who to go to. Like use people like myself, like others that you connect with on LinkedIn as resources. We're still very connected to Uzbekistan, to Uzbek diaspora. We want to see people succeed. I always take my time to help people on the career side in finance. And if anything you take away from these interviews or the interviews with other people that join these interviews, which you guys are doing a phenomenal job, use them
thank you.
as resources. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we really appreciate your support and dedication, and like you spare an hour of your time, and I know you do a lot of work when you come to New York. We've met a lot of times, right? And help young professionals, guide them. That's really like not everybody can do it. Not everybody does it, and we really appreciate it. And that's the main mission that united Uzbek diaspora as a community. And and then if you read our slogans, connect, network, contribute. Contribute is a big part. So you grow in your profession, you come to a certain point, and then you know that you have to give back. You have to contribute. That's when you really feel happy and fulfilled in life, I guess. So yeah, I really appreciate it, and I don't want to take no more time. I know you're in a rush; you have to go, but I'd love to have you next time, maybe this year at some point when you have a chance. I'd love to give it another shot and have an amazing conversation like today.
awesome. We'll do it one more time in the coming months. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right, have a safe trip.